And now, aviation weather around Alaska. It's now time to look at your aviation weather across Alaska. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service. And we're going to take a look now at midweek, Wednesday into Thursday. The main weather features we're going to be keeping an eye on are two centers of high pressure. It's Tuesday as I'm putting out this video. Over the lower Yukon Delta and also over northwest Canada. And strong high pressure above 1040 millibars will translate eastward and kind of replace the strong high that's been here over northwest Canada. But that'll be the case here through the midweek period. There will be a trough or a front brush the Arctic coast and North Slope as we go through Thursday. But in the meantime, Wednesday morning, there could be some areas of MVFR conditions just along the north side of the Alaska range on up to about the Yukon River, especially in through the lower Yukon Delta. Perhaps a sliver of IFR along the Alcan border in the east end there of the Yukon Flats. Otherwise, clear skies here out across much of the state, especially the southeast after the recent heavy snow dump there. And also south central areas will see clear skies, but we're going to have stronger northeasterly gap and ridgeline winds developing in response to a very tight pressure gradient between the axis or center of this high and due to the warmer waters too out along the Gulf Coast. So let's look at Wednesday afternoon. We could see a little pocket of IFR conditions out there toward the Alcan border, southeast mainland around and east of Mentasta Pass. Otherwise, generally VFR conditions across much of the mainland. You have to go way out southwest of the western Aleutians before you run into a broad area of IFR conditions. Thursday morning, again, I just want to step back and emphasize the winds. We're going to have some very strong outflow northeasterly winds. Thompson Pass, Valdez, the delta there to the Copper River, 75 to 100 mile per hour winds in some of these blowholes where you have those strong gap winds. Also down the length of Cook Inlet, the Matanuska Valley could see some strong gusty winds Wednesday. So be aware of that turbulence threat. And then Thursday, wide area of VFR conditions across much of the mainland and panhandle, but we're still going to have gusty winds, especially across southern parts of the mainland into the northern panhandle. And by Thursday afternoon, we'll start to see some IFR along this trough or front that'll be pushing quickly eastward across the central, eastern, north slope and Arctic coast. There could be some snow showers with some blowing snow, a little reduction in visibility as that disturbance works its way east. So Anaktuvuk Pass for Wednesday, up there in the central Brooks Range. Look for widespread VFR conditions there, also at Adigan Pass. Further south and west along the Alaska Range, generally we anticipate VFR conditions there. Lake Clark Merrill, right up on through Rainy Pass, Windy Pass. There may be some MVFR conditions as you fly north of the Alaska Range, so be aware of that. Isabel Pass, generally VFR conditions Wednesday. Mentasta Pass, though, may see MVFR conditions in the morning become IFR briefly in a little area there toward the Alcan border. Tanita Pass, so down across the Copper River Basin, all that cold air draining out. Tanita Pass, VFR conditions, as will Portage. But any of these more southern locations, watch out for turbulence in and around gaps and around the ridge lines because we're going to have some strong cold air drainage out of those areas. Chilkoot and White will see VFR conditions on Wednesday. Looking at the surface freezing line, it extends from along the coast of eastern Russia, dropping down to about St. Matthew to off of Bristol Bay and then along up through Shelikof Strait along the outer coast there of the Kenai Peninsula and into areas of the at least outer west and southwest coast of the Panhandle. Freezing levels do bump upwards to around and above 6,000 feet once you get along the southwest coast, and especially Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula back in through the eastern and central Aleutians. That's where the at least relatively milder air is. All the mainland and northwest Canada, though, no freezing levels aloft that can see. Now, there could be a little bit of isolated icing parts of the Panhandle. More so, though, along the Arctic coast, a few areas surface to 6,000 feet, and then back out here toward the central western Aleutians above 7,000 feet there, perhaps some areas of moderate icing there and through the lower Bering Sea. Looking at the upper level jet stream winds, impressively, we have this anticyclone, high pressure circulation at 30,000 feet, well defined. We have the jet core here over Siberia, upwards of 135 knots. And then notice northeast flow aloft, 30,000 feet, 100 to 120 knots coming right down through south central into the western Gulf. Bring it down to 700 millibars, 9,000 feet. Clearly, high pressure circulation here over the southwest coast, the Yukon Delta, Etolin Strait centered in that area. But look at the broad belt of winds in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, especially here through south central. That's why we're going to have such strong gusty winds in areas and certainly around any terrain or gaps. And then at 3,000 feet, we have the high pressure centered closer to the surface here over the lower Yukon Delta. There's another high center out here in northwest Canada, but this is the one that's going to gradually translate eastward, become the dominant high that then reestablishes. So by Wednesday night, Thursday morning, that high will rebuild upwards to around and just above 1050 millibars over lower Yukon Northwest Territories. But all this does is tighten the pressure gradient from the northern panhandle, Yakutat, going back here into the southwest. Cold northeasterly flow. Wednesday, we could see some gap winds flowing out of these areas that are notorious for strong winds. I imagine out of upper Yakutat Bay. We have areas of the Copper River Delta. Could see 100-mile-per-hour wind gust. Thompson Pass, at least wind gust 80, 90 miles an hour. And along areas of Cook Inlet, strong flow, just running down the length of Cook Inlet into the Etolin Strait, and then also off of Bristol Bay. So keep that in mind, as there will likely be areas of moderate to even, could say severe turbulence for sure around Thompson Pass and those areas along the Copper River Delta. Also here, there could be isolated severe turbulence within the nook here of Bristol Bay. So this area of south central, expect a lot of turbulence on Wednesday. Also some turbulence, middle Yukon River and up along the west end of the Brooks Range up toward Point Hope and along the inside there of the north slope, at least the western parts, and then moderate turbulence extending out along much of the eastern central Aleutians surface to 4,000 feet.